Hello everyone, welcome back. This is tutorial number 2 for Minecraft. So, today we're going to be talking about the coordinate system, breaking and placing, gravity, inventory controls and manipulation, the stack concept and stackability, movement controls such as jump, sneak, auto jump, and sprint, some block and transparency classification, and some stuff about fluids. Alright, so hang tight, we're going to get started. So from tutorial 1, you already know most of the basics. These are just more advanced things that are good for you to know as well. So let me go into a testing world. This one should work, I think. And we will get started. Alright, this may not be the best place to start. I'm going to go somewhere a little bit less intense. I'll get rid of the stuff in my inventory because they're irrelevant for the time being. Alright, cool. We're good to go. So let's just head on over here. This flat desert over here. I think this is a good place to start. Alright, so we're gonna start by looking at inventory. By looking at the coordinate system. So if you press F3, however you do it, this will come up. Now it's gonna block a part of your screen, but notice here in blocks, it will show you your position. So these three numbers are your X, Y, and Z positions. So X and Z are both horizontal in different directions. And Y is how high you are, elevation. So now if you notice, is this over here facing this towards negative X, that means this number will get smaller, so more negative if I walk forward. So if I walk forward, notice it just goes more negative. And now it's positive X, so now it goes more positive. And here it's positive Z, so the Z value will go up. And then positive negative Z, the Z value will go down. If you go up in the sky, the Y will go up. And if you fall down or dig down, then your Y will go down. So that's how the coordinate system works. Now this is useful because to remember things, you need to remember either good landmarks, but if that's too difficult for you, and as I prefer, I just take a look at the coordinates of the place I want to remember. I write it down somewhere and I can go back using the coordinates. I can just see where I am and see what direction I need to go to reach the coordinates I want to go, and then just head in that direction. I'll eventually get there. So that's a very important thing. Another thing is, in general, the horizontal coordinates X and Z are more important than the vertical one. So if you don't remember the vertical one, it's fine. You can just go up and down pretty easily. But the vertical one is actually very interesting because you cannot build as high as you want or as low as you want. In fact, at y equals 0, you reach bedrock and in survival mode. That means you cannot go past that. And if you're at y 256 in the overworld as of Java Edition 1.16, that means you cannot build any higher. You can still jump there, but you cannot place any blocks higher than that. A few other good y coordinates to know is that in the overworld, so over here, all water comes at y coordinate 62, 63-ish. So wherever you see ocean, river, that kind of feature, it's always going to be at the same level. This is called sea level, and the sea level never changes. It's always y equals 62 or 63, however you think. 62 is the first block. If you stand in, there will be water. 63 is the first one that there will not be water. So whichever one makes you think better, but that is sea level. It's always fixed throughout the overworld. In the nether, there's also something similar for the lava ocean, but since that's too advanced for now, I will not go over that for the time being. Another thing is that ores underground, as you will see once we start playing, generate a different elevation. So coal can be generated very high, but iron not so high, and diamonds very deep underground. So there's that, but we'll get to that when it's time to. Anyway, so that's an overview of the coordinate system. I will use this in my actual gameplay videos, and so now you know what I'm talking about when I use coordinates. Alright, let's keep going. Breaking and placing. Okay, so this one's very easy. So if I go to a block and I select it, so my crosshair over here, the thing in the middle, is selected on the block, and I press left click, it will break. So in creative mode, it breaks instantly. But in survival mode, it will not break instantly. Just give me a quick second. I'm gonna put myself right. I'm gonna put myself in survival mode to make a point. So notice how I tried to break it and it just broke instantly. So I'll try that again. See, it just broke instantly. But if I'm in survival mode, it will not break instantly. It will take a while to break and it will crack more and more until it breaks. So it actually takes some time to break. Notice that in survival mode, after I broke it, it went into my inventory. So if I have 7 of these sand blocks, if I break it, then that thing will pop out. That's an item. And if I click and I take it, now I have 8 of them, and I'll keep going. So you have to hold left click. You can't just left click. This is what happens if you left click it just once. Boom, nothing happens. You have to hold a left click on it in order to break. So not everything you can just break without a tool by hand like this, but sand is soft enough you can. Some things you actually can break. So that's why I just need to left click it once and it breaks. It doesn't drop itself, so it might drop sticks. See this one drop a stick, but it can also just drop nothing, but it will not drop the thing itself. This one though takes a while to mine, and in order to dig up the entire block and collect it, you have to hold it until it breaks. And if you just keep holding even after it breaks, it will break the next one the crosshair is too. So you can just keep breaking like this. And then when you collect the item that pops up when you break it, it goes in your inventory. So that's breaking. Hold left click or tap left click if that thing is instantly breakable. Now let's talk about placing. So placing is right click. This is not a hold action. You just have to right click once. So if you go here, like my crosshair is pointing, if I drag left click, I'm going to try to break it, right? I'm not actually going to break it, but if I left click, I'll try to break. If I right click it with the sand selected in my hotbar, boom, it places it there. Boom, like that. See, so I can place blocks like this. I can also jump and place under me. So if I place under me, nothing happens. If I jump and place, I can go higher and higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. You get the idea. So that's called stack jumping, and you can jump while stacking up, and it's a very useful thing as you will see later. But I'm just showing you the basics of how to do stack jumping and basic placing. So if you want to place, so let's say this sand block, I want to place a sand block to the left, right, forward, and backwards of it. So one here, one here, one here, one here, just like that. All right, so that's the basics of that's pretty much the basics of placing. I will get more into placing when we go and break. I'll get more into both breaking and placing when we go into the actual gameplay videos in the future. All right, what's next? Gravity. All right, so as you know, if you're on a high place, say, so if you're here and you step off this little pillar here, you will fall because of gravity, and that's perfectly understandable. There's nothing strange about it. However, not only will you do this, some blocks will do it too. So let me get some blocks right now, and I will prove a point to you. All right, let's take a look here. Okay. All right, so we have two different type of block here. This is a dirt block and this is a sand block, as you know. So let's try the dirt block first and see what happens. So I'm going to put the dirt block here on this side of the pillar. Boom. It does not fall down to the ground because dirt does not follow gravity. Now look at sand. Boom. It does fall down even though I place it up there, unlike dirt. So sand does follow gravity. So the difference is if you put sand up there, it will fall down. But if you put dirt up there, it won't fall down. Now you'll notice another thing is when a world is pre-generated, sometimes they're not loaded to fall down. So you have sand actually floating up or hanging from the ceiling. And when you place a block near to it, and then the block, something called the block state changes, and then all the sand around it just all falls down at the same time. And that can be quite annoying. So since this is a good example over here, you can see sand where my crosshair is pointing that's floating. But if I put something near it, say I'm going to go into creative mode. But if you say put something here, let's say I'm just going to put a block of stone that does not follow gravity. So this sand here is falling, but if I do this, see all the sand just fell down. It's because when the world is first generated, sometimes there's this kind of issue, and this also happens to other blocks. So here's another one. Ready? All three of them just fell down, just like that. So, and then I'll do one more like that. So this is, oh. So what I'm trying to say is only blocks that will obey gravity will do this. Now all entities, so all mobs like the players, pigs, cows, zombies, etc., they will all follow gravity, will all fall when it's time to fall, except for flying mobs. Flying mobs will not. For example, phantoms, bats, and the ender dragon, they can just fly. And then there's some mobs that are like in between. They can't fly, but they have wings and they can do something, like chickens. They will float down very slowly, but they'll still only go down. So they still obey gravity, but chickens are a little strange, as you'll see. And then, because in real life, chickens can't fly, but they still have wings, so they can flap them around sometimes. Not sure if that's helpful, but what is next to explain? It's worth noting that while all entities, mobs in this case, obey gravity, and all dropped items will also obey gravity. So if I drop an item, so say if I'm on top of a cliff and I drop this stone, say I drop the stick, it will not just float in midair, it will drop all the way down to the bottom. So dropped items will obey gravity, and mobs will obey gravity, but most blocks actually do not obey gravity. Only a few blocks do. So sand, as you're seeing, obeys gravity. Gravel obeys gravity. And then some interesting blocks that usually naturally doesn't occur, you have to craft it. It's called an anvil that also obeys gravity. And I'm not sure if there's more, but and concrete powder obeys gravity. So those are the most common ones, but especially sand and gravel. Sand and gravel are the two big ones that obey gravity. So if you know those, you're probably good for now. Later on, when we get into advanced stuff in our survival world, I'll introduce you to the anvil, which also obeys gravity. And actually, when it falls on top of a mob, it will do damage to that mob. So it's really interesting. All right, so that's gravity. What's next? Inventory controls. All right, so this is the interesting one. All right, so maybe I should talk about stacks and stackability first. Yeah, maybe I should talk about that first. All right, so I'll talk about stack. So I have an empty inventory. So let's say I get one. Oh, I need to go into survival mode first. All right. So I'm in survival mode. So just like before, if I break a sand, I get the one sand. If I break another sand, it doesn't take up another inventory. It takes up the same one, and that one sand just becomes a 2, and then a 3, etc. Let's just say I give myself a bit more sand. Oh, not game mode, sorry. Give at sand 6, say 57. Alright, so now I have 60 sand. Just suppose I'm just doing this for time's sake, but just suppose I kept digging and now I have 60 sand. Now if I do this, I'll get 61, but the question is, will this keep going? Answer is no, because if I have 63 and I get another one, I get 64. Then if I have 64 again, no, I don't get 65. I get 64 and then a separate stack of 1. That is because this is called a stack, and a stack is always 64 with some exceptions. And you can only stack things up to 64. You cannot stack different things. So you can't stack 32 sticks and 32 and rods together, for example. You have to stack 64 of the same thing. Now, some things cannot even stack up to 64. Things like snowballs, eggs, ender pearls, buckets can only stack up to 16. And also honey bottles. So they can only stack up to 16 instead of 64. And then there are things that are completely non-stackable, things with durability, so swords, pickaxe, axe, armor, bucket of water, bucket of lava, etc. They cannot be stacked at all. You can only stack to one, so you can't even get two of them in the same inventory slot. These things tend to clutter up your inventory quite a bit, as you'll see later on. So that's about stack. That's pretty much about the stack concept and stackability. Um, what is next? So now I'll talk about inventory controls. So if you go into your inventory by pressing E, if you hover your mouse here and you left click it, you can take it and you can move it around your inventory. If you right click it, it will take half of it. So I have 64, it will take it to be 32 and I can put it here. So then 32 plus 6 will become 38 like that. And this becomes 19, I can add it to here and get 51. I can just move them around. I can right click them like that, and I can also drag them. So I can do, say I have 25, I can just do this, and now there's one in every slot. And then if I double click it, they all come together again. So if I double click it, they all come together again, even if it was scattered. So these are our inventory controls, and once we get in, I will show you some exactly how some of them works. But basically, there's a lot you can do with left clicking, right clicking, dragging around, double clicking. There's just a lot you can do in the inventory. But yeah, that's that's probably a good All right. So, but that's probably a very good introduction to inventory controls and manipulation. As we will see in the future, we're going to use the inventory a lot, and we need to be very thoroughly understanding how to use the inventory in order to utilize it to maximum potential. All right. So that's that. Um, what is next? Okay, so some advanced movement controls. So, as you know, last time we talked about simple movement controls like going backwards, forwards, left and right, and jumping. Or maybe we didn't even talk about jumping. Let me see if we did. Alright, maybe we didn't. Let's suppose we didn't talk about jumping. So jumping is pressing the space bar. So if I'm here, I can jump. Also another thing you might want to know is if you press F5, you can go into third person mode and you will now see yourself from above. And then if you press it again, you go into front view and you can see yourself from the front. And then again, it will just normal first person view. So if I'm in third person view by pressing F5, so you can just keep pressing F5 to cycle through the different views. So if I'm in third person view, notice when I jump up, and when I jump here, I'm actually higher than the block. So that means I can actually go onto the block. So by jumping, I can go up one block. Here's a question: can we go up 2 blocks? Well, let's test that out. So you can go up 1 block. Can you go up 2 blocks? Nope, you cannot go up 2 blocks. As you can see, there's also like 1.25 blocks and 1.5 blocks and those half blocks, things like slabs and stuff. But for now, just ignore them and just think of blocks as integers, as natural numbers, whole numbers. So we don't have to think about half blocks. So if you're only thinking a whole block, you can always jump up 1 block and never up 2 blocks. That's the basic rule. So that's jumping using the space button. There's also something called sneaking, and when that happens, you cannot fall. So say I'm over here and I'll just fall off if I walk off. But if I press shift and hold it, on the sneaking, now I cannot fall off even if I want to. This is good for going to the edge of things without falling off. When you're sneaking, you're also slower. So this is my normal walking speed, and when I sneak, I become slower. I also become a little bit shorter. So I'll show you in third person view that when I'm sneaking, I crouch down a little bit. And that crouching effect makes you a little bit shorter as well. One thing you might notice in YouTube videos of Minecraft is they often repeatedly sneak as an effect of as an effect to show friendship and, sometimes just for fun. So they just keep doing this, something like that. Or if I show you in front view, it looks like this. Oops. So something just like this. They just keep doing this. This is a very um just a quick second. All right. I think we can continue now. So repeatedly sneaking like this is a way to show friendship in especially in multiplayer Minecraft. But since we're doing single player Minecraft, this is not very important. I'm just showing you this in case you're watching Minecraft video and wondering why they keep doing this. This is basically repeat. It doesn't have any actual gameplay improvement. It doesn't make you faster or slower or anything. It's just, a thing that people do for fun. All right, so that's sneaking. There's a lot more to sneaking than just not being able to fall off edges and becoming a little bit slower. In multiplayer, it means your name tag cannot be shown, but in single player, that doesn't matter. So in single player, I think actually the most important aspects of sneaking are actually one, not being able to fall off edges, and of course, two, to move slower if you need to. Sometimes you might think, why would it be good to move slower? But sometimes actually you'll see it's actually a better idea to move slower than faster because you want to be careful. And so that's when sneaking helps because it helps you move not too fast and not faster than you want. So if you want to move slow, sneaking is the way to go. All right, so that's sneaking. The next one's called auto jump. So if you go into ESC options and controls, there's an auto jump. So it's default on, but I turned it off. So if I have it on, when there's a one block, I don't actually have to jump. So I can just keep pressing W without jumping, or just jump for me. So when there's a one block, it'll just automatically jump when it encounters a block. I find that personally annoying, but some people like it. So I'm going to turn that back off in a bit. But before I do so, I'm going to show you that that only works when you walk forward. So if I walk forwards, it just automatically jumps for me without me having to press space. But if I'm walking backwards towards it, it does not automatically jump. I have to press the space bar to jump if I'm trying to walk backwards. If I'm walking sideways, it will still auto jump for me. So if I'm walking sideways, it works perfectly fine. It only doesn't work when you're walking backwards. So if you kind of like auto jump, but for some reason want to temporarily disable it, you can just walk backwards to imitate the disabling. So you don't have to go into option settings every time. If you still want to see where you're going while you're walking backward, just turn on third person view temporarily and you'll have a better view of where you're heading. All right, so that's auto jump. I'll turn it back off now that I have explained it. Um, the last thing is sprinting. So sprinting is a way to make yourself a little bit faster. So this is my normal walking speed. If I press Control while I keep holding W, I become faster. So I'm gonna, oh my God, the weather. All right, so I'm on this plains right here. So this is my normal walking speed. Do, 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 do. Now if I press Control, I get much faster. I can show you in third person. This is my normal walking and this is sprinting. I'm noticeably faster. It's not quite twice as fast, but close to twice as fast. So it's very important. When you're not jump, and here's the thing: if you are not sneaking, sorry, not sprinting, you can jump short distance. So this gap over here, I can jump it without having to sprint. But sometimes, if I'm not good, I might miss and I might fall into the gap. So I might do something like this, and oops, I missed the jump. Now I have to get out of here. Um, however, if you do a sprint, if you do a sprint while you're jumping, this reduces the chance of you messing up. So even if you jump too early, you might still be able to get across because you're sprinting. And so some gaps it's actually impossible to jump it without It's actually impossible to jump some of these gaps without sprinting just because they're way too big. And in that case, you must sprint. It's not a matter of, oh, it's less likely I messed up. It's actually you have to sprint in order to jump across a gap. So those in and when we get into gameplay, you'll see these situations arise a lot and I have to sprint. In peaceful, sprinting does not have any consequence, so it's actually advised to just sprint all the time. From now, I'm probably just going to sprint all the time because in peaceful difficulty, hunger doesn't really exist, and you cannot really your hunger bar, this bar over here, never actually goes down. And in non-peaceful, when you sprint, the hunger bar goes down very quickly, so it's advised you don't always sprint because if you keep sprinting, you're going to run out of food a lot. But in peaceful, since hunger doesn't matter, you can just sprint as much as you want, and so walking becomes pretty much redundant unless you really want to go a little bit slower. But usually you just sprint every time, so you don't have to walk. You just always sprint when you want to move in peaceful difficulty. So that's gonna become So I'm actually gonna say that it's gonna be the norm from now on. So whenever I'm sprinting, so whenever I'm doing things, I'm just gonna default to sprinting and only walk occasionally. To be but the default I'm going to use for now is going to be sprinting. So now you know why I'm moving so much faster than before. Now you know how to sprint if you like to sprint yourself as well. If you're not a fan of moving this quickly because you're a beginner and you want to explore the world more slowly, that's fine. But I personally am still going to use sprinting. And now you guys know how to activate it. Even if you're not a fan of sprinting, you know if you really needed to jump across a gap or something, you know how to activate sprinting now. All right, so that's that. Um, let's see. So the next is block classification. So there are different types of block. I won't go into this a lot, but see the one I'm standing on is a solid block because it's just sand. And if I go into this dead bush, I can't actually jump on top of a dead bush. I just walk right through the dead bush. In third person view, I just walk right through the dead bush because a dead bush is not a solid block. It's a non-solid block and you can just walk through non-solid blocks. So solid blocks you can stand on them, you can jump on them, you can walk on them, but you cannot go right through them. And non-solid blocks, you cannot jump or run or move on top of them, but you actually can just directly but it's actually possible for you to directly walk through them. So dead bush is a great example of a non-solid block because you can just directly walk through it. Flowers are also like this. Tall grass are also like this. And most mobs behave this way. Mobs are not blocks, but most mobs you can also just walk through them. Even though you'll push them to the side a bit when you do it. So this is tall grass. You can also just walk through them. These weed-like things, you can just walk through them. Flowers, you can walk through them. Apart from solid and non-solid blocks, another type of block is fluid blocks. So fluid blocks are things like water. You can swim in them, you can see under them, but they're not like you can just walk through them like non-solid block, or you can stand on them like solid blocks. Fluids are like neither solid nor non-solid, so it's kind of interesting. We'll get more into fluids in a little bit. So that's fluids. Transparency. So this is also very interesting because most blocks are opaque, means you can't see through them. So let's do an experiment right now to prove my point. So let's do an experiment right now to prove my point. I'm gonna give myself some dirt. So I'm gonna give myself some dirt, and I'm going to give myself some glass, and I'm gonna give myself some ice. All right. So now I'm going to just pillar up as usual. I'm not gonna go very high. Let's see, I'm gonna go this high. And now look at this block. So I'm going to use a very fancy block called bricks. So this is a block of bricks. So it's just very standard bricks. Now I can see it perfectly well because all that's separating me and this bricks is some air, and I can definitely see through air because that's kind of obvious. So air is transparent for sure. It's a non-solid transparent block that's found everywhere. There's also something called cave air that's found in cave, but it behaves exactly like air, so you don't have to worry about that. Now if I put dirt on top of it, I cannot see the brick block anymore because the dirt is opaque and the it covers up the bricks block. So by putting a dirt block on top of the bricks block, I cannot see the bricks block directly from above anymore. The dirt block is opaque. Now, if I put a block of glass on it, I can still see it. So I did put a block of glass on top of the brick, but I can still see the bricks. It's not because the glass has the pattern of bricks on its underside naturally. It's because glass is transparent and light can go through it. And even if I'm standing on top of a glass, I can see through the glass onto the brick below. And now finally I'm going to show you ice. Ice is translucent, so some light can go through it, but not all of them. So it's not like dirt where you cannot see the brick block at all, and it's not like glass where you can see the brick block under it perfectly well. Ice, you can kind of see the brick block, but you can't see it very well. You can make out, oh, it's a brick block underneath, but it looks kind of fuzzy. It's not like very clear that it's a brick block underneath, but you can still kind of see it. That's translucent. It's like in the middle ground between opaque like dirt and transparent like glass. That's translucent. All right, so that's about transparency. Oh, and when you break ice, it becomes water. Not like that really matters right now, but just letting you know that. All right, so that's that. So again, just reiterating, I'm sprinting right now because that's the default movement I'm going to be using from now on. So we talked about block classification, solid, non-solid, fluid, and transparency classification, opaque, transparent, translucent. Now we're going to talk about fluids in more detail. Now, as you know, fluids come in many different types. Well, not that many different types, but the most common one in the overworld is water. So I'm going to give myself a bucket of water. Water bucket. And so now if I pour it down by pressing right click, because that's how you place things, notice it just spreads out. Because it's a fluid, it will spread out like that. So it spreads out. So that's perfectly fine, it just spreads out like that. Now, if I put it close to a hill, it won't spread out, it will just flow downhill. It won't spread out over here because if it sees a hill, it will always flow downhill. That's something about the flow direction. It always wants to go downhill as much as it possibly can. When you are standing in the direction of flow, you're pushed towards the direction of flow. So I'm not moving or pressing any keys, but here I'm being pushed away in this direction. When you're moving towards the direction of flow, you move faster. When you move against the direction of flow, you move slower than usual. And this even happens when you try to sprint. And actually, you cannot sprint if you're in water, so it doesn't really matter. So that's about flow direction and moving inside the fluid. If you're moving in a non-moving fluid, so like let's see this one, it's not flowing anywhere, it's just standing still. Then your movement speed will just be the same as your standard movement speed inside fluid, which is slower than usual, and also you can't sprint, but it won't like there's no like against the current or towards the current because there is no flow direction in this case. Flow distance. So different types of liquid can flow different lengths. So notice with water, if I put it here, it's going to flow quite a few tiles. So this many tiles. So that's like 7-ish tiles in each direction. That's quite a bit. But now if I give myself a lava bucket, and lava is quite dangerous, so I'm going to give myself some resistance, fire resistance as well. It's just an effect so I don't burn up inside the lava. Don't worry about it too much. Boom. Oh, I'm sorry, sheep. I just killed a sheep with the lava. Oh well. So the point being, um, when I'm inside, sorry, the point being the water flowed in all directions about 7 tiles, but the lava actually only flowed 3 tiles. So the lava does not flow as far as the water does. But in the nether, the lava flows as far as water does, and water cannot be placed at all in the nether. But in the overworld, lava actually flows only 3 tiles, whereas water flows 7 times. And this is only if it's not going downhill. Now, if it's going vertically down, so say I'm gonna put some dirt here. Do, 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 do. So this is way more than like 7 or 3 tiles. But if I have it vertically like this, then the water will just keep flowing down and down and down and down and down and down like that. Now notice it will spread out a bit on the top and spread out a bit on the bottom. And it obviously flows downhill once it goes to the bottom. Now, you might not like it to spread so much. So what you can do is you can build something that looks kind of like this. You can build like a 3x3 that's hollow inside. And what that's gonna do is it's going to make the water not spread out. So now it's just going down in a straight line like that. Well, I kind of had to get rid of the previous water first to demonstrate this. So I'll just leave it alone for a little bit and then I'll show you. Right, it should be good. I'll go into creative mode for a bit. Okay, so now if I put this here, it actually doesn't spread out, just keep going down in a straight line. But when it gets to the bottom, it will still spread out, and that might still be annoying for some of you. So instead of not, so by putting this 3x3 thing with hollow, it prevents the water from spreading out to the top. If you also don't want it to spread out to the bottom, just dig an extra block down. So like it was like this before, right? So now I'm just gonna dig this extra block here. Boom. I'm gonna get rid of this extra block. And if I dig that extra block, watch what happens when I put down the water. It does not spread out at all. It just goes down. And this is what we call a water elevator. So I'm gonna go back to survival and show you how to use the water elevator. In order to go up, just press W into it and then look up. And then also press control, like how you sprint. So if I sprint into it, so I'm just going to press W and I'm going to press control, I'm going to sprint into there. And then you just press spacebar once you go in. Spacebar is to jump, and if you keep jumping, you'll just go up. So I'm going to show you how to go up once again. Sprint, hold the jump button, and you're all the way up at the top now. Now, in order to go down, you just walk into the water and you press shift. By pressing shift, you can, so when you're inside water, whenever you press shift, you go down really quickly. And then you just press W to get out when it's time to. So sprint, jump to go up, walk into there, and shift to go down. And it's not press shift once, it's press shift a bunch of times. This is what happens if you don't do a sprint. So if you choose to go up a water elevator without sprinting, it will be much slower. See, this is much slower. And if I sprint, I can go up much faster. Like that. And if I choose to not sneak, so not press shift when I go down, it'll go down really, 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 really slowly. If I press shift, I go down much faster. So one more time to show you the difference. This is going up with sprinting. This is going down with sneaking. This is going up without sprint. This is going up without sprinting. You should never do this because it's really slow. So going up without sprinting. And this is going down without sneaking. Really, really, really slow. Really, really slow. And I'm going to illustrate the difference one more time. So I'm going to start by no sprinting, and then I'm going to sprint. So this is no sprinting, and this is sprinting. Notice the difference in speed. This is no sneaking. This is yes sneaking. Also notice the difference. So yes, always sprint up and sneak down water elevators. Water elevators are a very effective way to travel up and down vertical distances in a very short amount of time. So it's extremely. Just a second. I'll get rid of this sheep. It's kind of annoying. All right, that's good. So the point being the point I was trying to make was whenever you're using a water elevator, always sprint up and sneak down. Also, water elevators are all very important. They look pretty good. When you design them right, they will not spread out and like spread out everywhere you don't want them to. And they're very effective and fast at traveling vertical distances both up and down very easily. All right, so that's about water elevators. What else should I tell you about water or lava? Um, Let me think about it. What else should I tell you about water and lava? Maybe that's it for fluids for now. And oh, one thing. Not only will it affect you, it will also affect mobs. So if I put water here and it's flowing against the current, the sheep will get pushed by the current away. And if I throw something like this lava bucket here, so also I'll show you how to throw later, but if I throw it into the current, also the item itself will also get pushed into the direction of flow. So this will affect yourself, it will affect other mobs, and it will affect items. So it affects all entities. This pushing by flow direction. Um, all right, a little more advanced stuff now. So how do you throw? Sometimes you might want to get rid of stuff in your inventory, or if you're a multiplayer, you want to throw it to other things. Or if you're bartering with piglings, as you'll see later, you might want to throw stuff to them. So the way you do it is you press Q. So that I have 61 ice, if I press Q, that ice drops as an item. I have 60 ice, and you just keep holding Q and it'll throw away all this stuff. So that's how you throw things, and you can just pick it back up if you regret throwing them for any reason. So you can always pick them back up. It's not like when you throw them, they're gone forever or anything. Um, if you do want them to be gone forever, throw them into fire or throw them into lava, then they will actually be gone forever. Or throw them into the void if you're in the end, but that's another story and that's very advanced for later. So yeah, that's as far as throwing is concerned. Another thing is you can also throw directly in your inventory. So if you open up your inventory, left click it. So if you put it here, just move it around your inventory as I said earlier. But if you select it and you click it outside of your inventory, boom, it throws them all out. So instead of having to press Q 61 times or hold Q for a very long time like I was doing, I'm holding Q. It takes a while to throw all of them away because there's a lot, like 58 things, so actually you have to hold Q for a pretty long time. If you don't like doing that, instead you can just pick up the entire thing and just throw them all away. So this is very fast. I'm just throwing every single thing away in like 5 seconds. Super convenient. So that's, but not like throwing, you're gonna use that a lot in single player, but when your inventory is full, because remember your inventory was only this big. After it fills up, you cannot put stuff in your inventory anymore, and in order to put more things, you have to throw away some useless things you had from before. So that's when throwing a lot of things away very quickly and conveniently it becomes very helpful. So yeah, that's how you throw things away. One last thing before I end off this video, I did not mention this at all in the introduction to the video, but I think it's worth noting it. um I think it's worth noting this. It's in Minecraft there are things called generated structures. So this is just a very normal world, but sometimes you get artificial looking things that are clearly not created by nature, or like clearly not just natural things that should exist, but they exist because they're artificial looking and they're always there unless you turn generated structures off, which I won't show you how to do because generated structures are awesome. You never really want to turn them off unless you're a crazy person. But yeah, so generated structures are things like villages or pillager outposts or shipwrecks or fortresses or pyramids, etc. And they have different types of loot in them. Loot is found in chests, and I'll show you how to open chests in a bit. And I won't go into generated structures for now, but just letting you know that they're a thing. And when we're playing our world, you're gonna run into generated structures a lot, both above ground and underground, in the water, underwater, over water, on land, in the nether, in the end, in any biome, you always find different types of generated structure. So there's like in water, underwater you will find things like ocean monuments and shipwrecks and ocean ruins. On land, you will find like pyramids and temples and mansions. Underground, you'll find strongholds and mine shafts. In the nether, you'll find fortresses and bastions. In the end, you will find end ships and end cities. Also above land, you will find villages and pillager outposts. Underground, you'll also find dungeons. And then on the beach or in very shallow water, buried under slightly underground, you'll find buried treasures. One of the weirdest, smallest, and most interesting um, generated structures ever. Buried treasures are only 1 times 1 times 1. They're only 1 block long. And buried treasure is just a single chest with a bunch of loot in it. That's it. It doesn't have anything else. It's just the smallest. It's literally the smallest generated structure you can ever find. And then there's also more natural generated structures. These ones some people debate shouldn't even be considered generated structures at all because they're not artificial. They're actually natural. Things like caves and ravines. Ravines are just like big valleys that you might fall into if you're not careful. So caves, ravines, what else? Things of that nature. You get the idea. More natural, not so artificial generated structures that can also exist in the game. All right, so that's a very brief overview on generated structures. In fact, there's a desert pyramid right there, an example of an artificial generated structure. Let's go and take a look since we have nothing better to do. So I'm just swimming across. Oh, by the way, one thing about water I forgot to mention. If you're just walking in water on the surface, it's really slow. If you're swimming inside the water, it's still really slow. Like, look how slow. But if you now try to sprint while inside water, not like on the surface, but like literally inside the water itself, if you press control and sprint, it will go much faster. You will also look different. So if I let myself breathe so I don't drown. So this is swimming without sprinting, and this is swimming with sprinting. So this is swimming without sprinting in third person. This is swimming with sprinting. Look, I'm actually swimming, where if I don't, then I'm not actually swimming. So that's the difference. So I'm going to show you again. So this is swimming without sprinting. I'm just like walking in the middle of the water, walking in the middle of the river, not at the surface and not on the bed of it. I'm just walking in the middle of this river. And I'm just going to breathe. I'm going to walk again. So going back down underwater with shift, you can go under faster, remember? And so I'm just walking very slowly in the middle of the river. If I sprint, I go into swimming mode and move much faster. Also, I am shorter because vertically, I am about 2 tiles tall here. 2 tiles tall. But if I'm even if I'm walking in the middle of the river, I'm still 2 tiles tall, right? But when I start swimming, my height goes down to only about 1 tile tall, so 1 block. So now I can fit into very small gaps that I normally cannot fit into because I am shorter. So just an introduction on that. Okay, back to first person view. So we're on the other side of this river now. So this here is sugarcane. It's a type of plant that can only grow near water, and it's a non-transparent, sorry, it's a non-solid block, just like dead bush and grass that we've seen before. This sugarcane is a oh my god, why do I keep saying non-transparent? Non-solid block, and you can just walk through it. Watch. I'm literally walking through this sugarcane in third person view. So yeah, sugarcane is another type of non-transparent, non-solid blocks that we just um that we were just exposed to. I guess you can argue it's also non-transparent because you can kind of see through the sand on the other side, but the sugarcane kind of blocks part of it. So if you really want to argue it's like translucent, I guess that's fine as well. But the point I'm trying to make here is it's a non-solid block, and you can just literally just walk right through it. In real life, I'm not sure if you can just walk through sugarcane like that. I guess I should probably test it out if I want to see if I can just walk through real life sugarcane just like that. Um, um, all right. Anyway, so this is a desert pyramid I was talking about earlier. So if you go here, if you mine this block, I'm actually going to go into creative mode to show you a point. So I'm going to mine these blocks so I can go under here, and in the pyramid, there's this. This is a trap. If you step on it, the entire thing explodes and you get nothing. You'll probably die from the explosion as well. So in order to disable trap, you just get rid of it. There, now the trap is gone. So these are called loot chests, and they're found in many generated structures. Almost all generated structures have loot chests except for a few, and loot chests contain good loot in them. So I can just open a chest by right-clicking it. Boom. And then I can just use my inventory manipulations, double click to put everything together, and then just click them into my inventory. So now this loot that was originally inside the chest is now in my inventory. Now chests are not only for loot, you can also use them for storage and to clear up your inventory. So I don't want this mutton anymore. I can put the mutton into there. So I can move things into the chest and out of chests. More chests here, and another thing about chests, if you break the chest, everything inside the chest will come out. So if you don't want to take the time to go through what's inside the chest and you just want to know what's inside the chest right away very quickly, just break the entire chest and you get everything inside the chest very quickly. So that's how you get the contents of the chest really convenient quickly. Just break the chest. In survival mode, breaking a chest will give you both the chest itself and all the items in it. In creative mode right here, breaking a chest will only give you the contents of the chest, or what's inside, but not the chest itself. So that's very interesting. I guess I should have showed you that in survival mode instead of creative mode, because that would be more interesting. So I was talking about how there's a trap. So you might be wondering, why does stepping on that gray looking thingy will explode in here? That's because under here there's TNT. So this is TNT and it will explode when you activate it. There's a lot of ways to activate TNT, but that's not really important for you right now. The point being, desert pyramids are one of the few structures that contain traps, and if you step on the traps and you're not careful, the entire thing will explode. In fact, telling you an anecdote right now, the first time I've been to a desert pyramid, I didn't know there was a trap and it actually activated and all the loot just exploded and I almost died from the explosion. That was terrible. Oh my god. And then I looked up the wiki and I saw that, oh, so there's a trap in the desert pyramid. And then ever since then, I never fell into a desert pyramid trap ever again, because now I know that all desert pyramid has the exact same trap. It actually gets kind of repetitive after a while because all desert pyramid has the exact same trap. So after you fall into the trap once, you're likely never going to fall into that same trap ever again. So yeah, that's desert pyramid and the trap and the loot chest and how you open chests and how you use chests and what loot chests are. And that's just a quick overview of one of many generated structures I've talked about. Here's another generated structure right here. This one is look, it looks like a very shallow ravine and that leads into a cave system. Guess that's not very important right now. Is there anything else that's important? Oh, right now I'm giving myself an effect on night vision so I can see better. Everything is brighter. Normally under ravines and caves, it's really dark and you have to manually light up the place in order to see your way around. Or else it's really dark. But now I have night vision just for testing purposes, so everything is brighter than usual. That's why if you're like, oh, why is this cave so bright? I thought caves are supposed to be really dark places. That is why. Alright, let's see if I can find an actual ravine. Oh, right there. So this is a more standard ravine. This is like a valley that's all the way falls down. There's some sand over here. So this sand is supposed to fall. So if I put a block here, like I did earlier, the entire thing just falls. See? All the sand just falls down like that. It's really cool. Wee, wee. Okay, maybe not that one. Alright, anyway, enough of that funny looking thing. So this here is a ravine, and ravines will have lava in it, it will have water in it, and it has a bunch of minerals. So this is deep underground. And so just an introduction to ravines and caves. Ravines usually cut into cave systems just because of how big they are. See this ravine here? This big ravine here cuts into this cave system. So if you go past the lava, so this here is actually a cave. This is not a ravine anymore. This is not part of the ravine anymore. This is now a cave. Caves are different from ravines in some pretty obvious ways. Ravines are narrow and deep and long, and caves are completely underground and they're not very high, so ravines have like a really high ceiling or they have no ceiling at all, and caves have a very low ceiling, and if you jump sometimes you'll just bump your head. So like if you jump you might bump your head on the ceiling. That's how short the ceiling in caves are compared to ravines, where you pretty much never bump your head against the ceiling if you jump inside the ravine. That's a very obvious way to tell the difference between caves and ravines. Do you really need to know the difference between caves and ravines? If you ask me, no, because caves and ravines provide the same kind of benefits and loot. They both contain minerals, water, lava, and they both contain hostile mobs if you're not playing in peaceful difficulty, so we don't have to worry about that if we're in peaceful. But they kind of contain the same kind of stuff, so if you found a cave and you found a ravine, you're expected to get the same kind of stuff out of them, so it doesn't really matter if it's a cave or a ravine in the end. If it's either a cave or a ravine, they're both natural structures that have a bunch of minerals in them, and especially if you're not in a maxed out or like late game account, finding a cave or finding a ravine is very useful because you get a lot of minerals out of it very quickly that otherwise you have to mine a long time for. So yeah, that's an introduction to caves and ravines. I'm gonna get out of this ravine now because this is just a testing world and I don't actually need any of the minerals in here. I mean, minerals are very nice, but this is again just a testing world and a tutorial world to show you stuff around. So I really don't need to spend that much more time inside the cave or ravine system. All right, so that's that. I think it's been a pretty long video. I'll hang up here, and I think I've gone over all the core mechanics I wanted to go over. And the next video, tutorial 3, and in the next video, which is tutorial 3, we will officially continue on our tutorial world and we'll start actually playing it. So we're gonna start making progress in our actual tutorial world. It will be gameplay for next tutorial. See you in tutorial 3. Goodbye. Have a nice day.